The last escape pods jettisoned from the dying Jularian dreadnought, scattering like metallic seeds across the void. Admiral Helena Reeves tracked their trajectories on the relentless command display, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic projections of debris fields and rescue operations. "Status report on the flagship boarding," she demanded, voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Lieutenant Kim's voice crackled through the comm. "Secured, Admiral. War Commander Vex Kalar is in custody." He didn't resist as expected. Something in Kim's tone made Reeves frown. "Elaborate, Lieutenant." "He's laughing, ma'am. Not hysterical. Cold. Calculating. Says we're too late." Reeves felt ice form in her stomach. "I'm coming aboard. Maintain biosecurity protocols. Full containment." The shuttle journey to the crippled Jularian flagship took 11 minutes. 11 minutes during which Reeves reviewed everything humanity knew about their enemy. 3 centuries of documented conquest. Dozens of species subjugated or exterminated. A military doctrine that prioritized efficiency over mercy. And yet, in their first major defeat, their commander found reason to laugh. When the airlock cycled open, the smell hit her first. A strange mixture of ozone, exotic metals, and something organic that human olfactory systems couldn't quite process. The Jularian ship interior resembled a cathedral designed by mathematical sadists, all precise angles and disturbing symmetry that seemed to pull at the human eye. 2 Marine escorts flanked her, weapons ready. "This way, Admiral. We've secured their command center." War Commander Vex Kalar sat surrounded by human security forces. His exoskeleton, a mottled blue-black carapace studded with neural interfaces, gleamed dully under the emergency lighting. 4 primary eyes tracked Reeves' approach while secondary optical clusters remained fixed on his captors. "The esteemed Admiral Reeves," he said, voice translator rendering his clicks and whistles into eerily perfect English. "I wondered if you would come personally to witness your temporary victory." Reeves maintained parade rest, hands clasped behind her back. "Your fleet is destroyed. Your invasion has failed. There's nothing temporary about it. You misunderstand the nature of this conflict." 4-fingered hands gestured in what might have been a Jularian shrug. "This was merely the vanguard. The first taste. We found your navigation logs," Reeves countered. "Your targeting data for our colony worlds. The sterilization protocols. Ah, so you understand what we intended." Vex Kalar's mandibles clicked in what intelligence suggested was amusement. "And yet you disabled rather than destroyed our command ships. You take prisoners rather than executing them. Fascinating. Precisely as the Behavioral Analysis Division predicted." Reeves stepped closer. "Meaning? Your species possesses a peculiar weakness. You believe in concepts like proportional response and moral authority. You seek to demonstrate your superiority through restraint." He nearly spat the last word. "A biological disadvantage we have exploited in 12 previous conquest cycles." One of the Marines shifted uncomfortably as Reeves maintained eye contact with the alien commander. "And yet here you sit, defeated by that same restraint." "Am I?" Vex Kalar's secondary eyes blinked in sequence. "Tell me, Admiral, why did you come aboard personally? To question me? To demonstrate your authority? Or because you sensed something was wrong?" Before Reeves could respond, emergency klaxons blared. Lieutenant Kim's voice crackled through her comm. "Admiral, we've detected temperature spikes in their propulsion core. They've initiated some kind of delayed self-destruct sequence." Vex Kalar's mandibles spread in what intelligence reports classified as a gesture of supreme satisfaction. "The Jularian hegemony has studied humanity extensively, Admiral. We know your weaknesses intimately. Compassion, curiosity, the need to understand your enemy." Reeves was already moving toward the exit, barking evacuation orders as the deck plates began to vibrate beneath them. "Secure the prisoner. All personnel. Emergency protocols." "It doesn't matter," Vex Kalar called after her. What you found in our navigation systems was meant to be found. The real plan is already in motion. This is merely data collection. The last thing Reeves saw before Marine escorts pulled her through the bulkhead was the war commander's strange alien smile, the expression of a being who, despite apparent defeat, believed victory was inevitable. She had 20 minutes to prove him wrong. The gallery erupted into chaos following High Chancellor Zextor's inadvertent confession. Security drones hovered at strategic points throughout the chamber, their weapons systems tracking movement but holding fire. Dr. Amara Okafor watched the pandemonium with clinical detachment, a xenohistorian observing history unfold in real time. Order. Justice Administrator Haruki Tanaka's amplified voice cut through the tumult. We will maintain dignity in these proceedings or clear the chamber. The noise subsided gradually, like a storm reluctantly retreating. Specialist Rachel Chen remained at the podium, her slight frame standing in stark contrast to the massive holographic display behind her, now showing the ornate Eularian medal in excruciating detail, its inscription translated into 17 languages. I'd like to continue my questioning, Chen said, voice soft but unyielding. She didn't wait for permission. Chancellor Zextor, our Xenolinguistics division has been studying your language for decades. We've noticed something peculiar about your term for lesser species. The root etymology shares markers with your word for resources. Not enemies, not even competitors. Resources. Zextor's upper membrane flickered. A Eularian expression intelligence analyst still debated the meaning of pride, annoyance, amusement. Your linguistic analysis is impressively thorough, he conceded. But you mistake cultural context for intent. All advanced civilizations categorize other sentient life according to their. I'm not finished, Chen interrupted, a breach of protocol that drew murmurs from the human delegation. We also found that your military academy's core text on interspecies relations contains this passage. She gestured, and new text appeared on the display. I quote, "The fundamental error of emerging species is the belief that sentience confers inherent value. The enlightened understand that value is determined by contribution to galactic order under Eularian guidance." Zextor's secondary breathing vents flared. You've taken a philosophical treatise out of context, Toe. This treatise, as you call it, was required reading for your bioweapons division. Chen continued relentlessly. The same division that developed species-specific pathogens for 16 separate civilizations, including ours. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the Eularian delegation seemed stunned by the precision of her knowledge. How did you? Zextor began before catching himself. Because we made the same mistakes, Chen replied, her voice suddenly heavy with history. Humanity's archives are filled with identical justifications for our worst atrocities, the categorization of others as resources, the pseudoscientific ranking of sentient life, the belief that domination is natural law rather than moral failure. She looked up, meeting the Chancellor's 4 primary eyes directly. The difference is we recognize our mistakes and evolved beyond them. You encoded yours into doctrine. From her observation point, Dr. Okafor watched something extraordinary happen. Admiral Helena Reeves, who had maintained rigid military bearing throughout the proceedings, briefly closed her eyes, not in distress or exhaustion, but in recognition. The highest-ranking military officer in human space, silently acknowledging humanity's own blood-soaked past. Zextor, master diplomat of 1,000 negotiations, seemed momentarily disarmed by this unexpected approach. His translator remained silent for 17 seconds, an eternity in diplomatic discourse. When he finally spoke, his tone had shifted subtly. If you understand this shared, evolutionary path, then surely you recognize that mercy toward those on similar trajectories is. Translation error, announced the AI interpreter abruptly. The Eularian term used does not match standard English mercy. Closer approximations, strategic patience, temporary forbearance, or suspended judgment pending reassessment of utility. A ripple of realization passed through the human delegation. Administrator Tanaka leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Chancellor, are you requesting mercy or merely a postponement of consequences until your civilization can reassert dominance? Before Zextor could formulate a response, the chamber's emergency systems activated without warning. Atmospheric sensors flashed red across multiple stations. Security barriers slammed down around the Zularian delegation. Biohazard detected. The station AI announced calmly. Unknown pathogenic agent released from Zularian diplomatic credentials. Containment protocols engaged. The last expression Dr. Okafor witnessed on Chancellor Zextor's face before the containment field obscured it was unmistakable in any species. The cold calculation of a backup plan being executed. The encrypted transmission from the purported Zularian resistance flickered on the war room's central display, its authenticity markers running through verification algorithms. Colonel Derek Chen paced like a caged predator, the scars on his face livid under the harsh lighting. "Trap," he muttered. "Has to be." Dr. Okafor studied the message contents again. The linguistic patterns don't match official Zularian diplomatic protocols. Different dialect markers, regional variations consistent with their southern continental populations, which they would know we analyze. Ambassador Reyes countered. Their intelligence division could easily replicate minority speech patterns. Intelligence Director Patel manipulated the holographic interface, isolating specific data packets embedded in the transmission. There's something else here. Biometric verification codes. According to our databases, they match a Zularian named Venkelax, former genetic sciences director who disappeared 3 standard years ago. Disappeared or was disappeared? Chen asked pointedly. The room fell silent as implications settled. Zularian purges were legendary for their thoroughness. Dissidents didn't disappear. They were erased, along with any record of their existence. The transmission contains something else. Paddle continued, extracting a complex string of data. Coordinates, deep within Zularian territory, approximately 200 kilometers beneath their southern polar ice cap. A trap location, Chen insisted. Or the location of a trap they want us to know about. Ride suggested, her diplomatic instincts humming. The timing is too convenient, right after we discover their bioweapon plans. Dr. Okafor's fingers danced across her personal interface. Wait. Cross-referencing with intercepted communications from the War Commander's vessel. There are multiple references to something called the Slumbering Dark, or the Sleeping Darkness, always in their highest security encryption. The room's eye assistant projected a 3-dimensional map of Zularian space, highlighting the coordinates with a pulsing red marker. Location analysis complete. The provided coordinates correspond to an area with unusual thermal signatures detected by long-range scans, consistent with large-scale geothermal power generation. Chen's scared face twisted. A hidden facility. "We need to make contact with this resistance group," Ray said. "If they're legitimate, they could provide critical intelligence about. And if they're not," Chen cut in, "we compromise our position and reveal how much we know." The debate was interrupted by an urgent communication from Justice Station. Administrator Tanaka's face appeared on screen, his usually composed features tight with tension. The Zularian delegation attempted to release a biological agent during the tribunal, he reported grimly. Containment protocols were successful, but analysis indicates it was a sophisticated neurological agent designed to affect human cognitive functions while leaving other species unharmed. Silence fell over the war room before Chen broke it with a harsh laugh devoid of humor. "Still think we should talk to their resistance. This changes things," Rise admitted reluctantly. "But we need to consider all possibilities. What if elements within their society genuinely oppose these tactics? Or what if," Dr. Okafor interjected, her voice unusually sharp, "they're counting on our capacity for hope to blind us?" Every historical instance of Zularian resistance movements among conquered species ended with mass arrests and executions. Director Patel cleared his throat. "There is another option. We respond to the transmission but feed them controlled information. See what they do with it. A dangerous game, Rise warned. Less dangerous than ignoring a potential bioweapon facility beneath their polar ice, Patel countered. The team's deliberation was interrupted by a priority alert. The room's displays simultaneously shifted to security footage from the detention center, where the captured Jularian war commander was being held. Vex Kalar's body convulsed violently in his cell, a strange luminescent fluid leaking from his breathing vents. "What's happening?" Chen demanded. The medical officer on duty appeared ashen-faced on the communication screen. "He's self-terminating, sir. Some kind of implanted toxin release. Before it activated, he said one phrase repeatedly." "What phrase?" Dr. Okafor asked, already dreading the answer. "The sleeping darkness awakens with your curiosity." In the resulting silence, the transmission from the Jularian resistance group blinked steadily on the display, waiting for a response that could save or condemn billions. The aftermath of the failed Jularian biological attack transformed Justice Station's central chamber from a tribunal into a tightly controlled crisis center. Emergency decontamination fields shimmered around the Jularian delegation, many of whom appeared genuinely shocked by their leadership's actions. Supreme Commander Yamamoto stood unshaken despite the assassination attempt. His voice, when he resumed speaking, carried the weight of mountains. "Your desperation only confirms our judgment," he said, addressing the isolated Jularians. "Your civilization cannot yet be trusted with its own destiny." From behind the containment field, Chancellor Zek's Tour's composure had fractured entirely. Gone was the practiced diplomat, replaced by something rawer and more primal. The translator struggled to keep pace with his rapid-fire vocalizations. "You understand nothing. The great equilibrium requires Jularian guidance. Without us, the galaxy will descend into evolutionary chaos. Lesser species will determine their own paths," Yamamoto finished for him. "As is their right." Dr. Okafor watched the proceedings from a secondary chamber, her analysis team working frantically to decode the biological agent structure. The preliminary findings disturbed her deeply. Not merely a weapon, a message encoded in molecules. The pathogen contained dormant genetic sequences that, had they activated successfully, would have rewritten portions of the human limbic system, specifically those governing fear and submission. "He's still talking about mercy," reported her linguistic specialist, monitoring the Chancellor's increasingly agitated speech. "But the contextual markers have shifted. He's not requesting it anymore. He's lamenting that Jularians showed too much of it by not exterminating potential rivals earlier." Okafor nodded grimly. "Record everything." This is the most honest Jularian diplomatic speech in 3 centuries. On the main chamber's display, Yamamoto outlined humanity's comprehensive plan for Jularian rehabilitation. Resource allocation, technology restrictions, mandatory education reforms, reparations for devastated worlds. Each point landed like a hammer blow on Jularian pride. "Your civilization will earn back its autonomy through demonstrated commitment to peaceful coexistence," Yamamoto concluded. "Not through promises, but through actions. Not in years, but in generations." A junior Jularian delegate suddenly lurched forward, body convulsing violently. The containment field sensors registered massive neurological disruptions seconds before the delegate's exoskeleton began to split along predetermined stress lines. Security drones converged instantly, deploying suppression foam, but not before everyone witnessed the delegate's body metamorphosing into something no intelligence report had ever documented. "Secondary biological failsafe activated," announced station security. "Unknown transformative agent detected." Chancellor Zek's Tour watched his transforming subordinate with what human observers would later describe as religious ecstasy. "You see, we are not merely what we appear. The enlightened race transcends your understanding." The transforming delegate's body stabilized into a crystalline structure that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Security scans registered it broadcasting on quantum frequencies that bypassed standard communications jamming. Station-wide alert, came the immediate response. Unknown signal detected. All personnel, initiate cognitive defense protocols. Commander Yamamoto remained unruffled even as security personnel rushed to escort human observers from the chamber. Impressive, he acknowledged calmly, but anticipated. He gestured, and a secondary field activated around the crystalline entity, its specialized matrix disrupting the quantum broadcast. The light within the transformed Jularian flickered and dimmed. "We studied your previous encounters thoroughly," Yamamoto explained. The Tresians recorded this phenomenon before their extinction. Their final transmissions provided the necessary countermeasures. For the first time, genuine shock registered in Chancellor Zextor's expression. The Tresians were completely eradicated, their records destroyed. "Not completely," Yamamoto replied simply. "They'd reached us first, left warnings, provided context that your histories omitted. The implications hung in the air like a suspended blade. Human intelligence was far more extensive than the Jularians had calculated. The revelation that extinct species had somehow transmitted warnings to Earth before their destruction undermined centuries of Jularian security doctrine." Across the chamber, Dr. Okafor received an urgent communication from Earth Command. The message was brief, but its significance monumental. Polar coordinates confirmed. Operation Torchlight authorized. As if sensing the shift in momentum, Chancellor Zextor's upper membranes contorted into what xenobiologists had identified as their expression of absolute certainty. "You've activated it now," he said, suddenly calm again. "The sleeping darkness stirs. You should have accepted our mercy while it was offered." Lieutenant Commander Maya Ortega pressed her back against the ancient stone of the catacombs, the wound in her side pulsing with each labored breath. The bioluminescent fungus growing on the tunnel walls cast everything in an eerie blue glow, transforming the Jularian architecture into something from a fevered nightmare. "Fascinating choice of pursuit," Krevnoth's voice echoed from somewhere ahead. "Most humans would have retreated to safety, called for reinforcements. But not you." Ortega checked her sidearms charge, 73%, before moving forward in a half-crouch. "Most Jularians would have had better escape plans," she countered, tracking moisture patterns on the floor. Krevnoth was bleeding some kind of ichor, leaving nearly invisible traces under the strange light. Amateur mistake. A rasping sound, the Jularian equivalent of laughter, bounced off the tunnel walls. Who said I'm trying to escape? That confirmation of her suspicions sent ice through Ortega's veins. She'd followed enough resistance fighters to recognize the difference between retreat and lure. The realization came too late as the tunnel ahead widened into the massive chamber with the ancient machinery. Krevnoth stood beside the maintenance robots, his slender form nearly lost among the massive technological constructs that hummed with power far beyond anything the occupation forces had documented. His upper carapace was cracked, leaking luminescent fluid that matched the fungal glow on the walls. "Your timing is impeccable," he said, mandibles clicking in what intelligence briefings identified as satisfaction. "You should feel honored. Few outsiders witness a revelation phase." Ortega kept her weapon trained on him, using her free hand to activate her emergency beacon. No signal. They were too deep. "I've got plenty of charges and nothing but time," she bluffed. "Start talking." "Time is precisely what you lack," Krevnoth corrected, gesturing to the machinery around them. "These aren't maintenance robots. They're guardians, dormant for centuries, awakening only when needed." As if responding to his words, the massive constructs shifted, their movements revealing biological components integrated with mechanical parts. Ortega's tactical assessment went from bad to catastrophic in seconds. "What are they guarding?" she demanded, already knowing she wouldn't like the answer. Krevnoth approached a crystalline interface, his three-fingered hand hovering over its surface. "The truth your kind seeks so desperately. The reason we fought your occupation so fiercely." He pressed his palm against the crystal, which responded by illuminating with internal light. "The reason mercy was never an option. The hidden door that materialized in the chamber wall slid open with ancient precision, revealing the biological containment facility beyond. Rows upon rows of suspension chambers extended into darkness, each containing preserved specimens from dozens of species. The nearest ones held humans, men, women, children, floating in translucent fluid, their expressions peaceful as if sleeping. Gods, Ortega whispered, professional detachment crumbling. No, Krevnoth corrected. Merely architects of evolution. This facility is one of 50 spread across our worlds. The bioweapon your leaders discovered. A crude implementation of our true capacity. He approached the nearest human specimen. A young woman who might have been sleeping if not for the neural interfaces connected to her skull. This subject has been conscious for 7 years, experiencing thousands of simulated death scenarios. Each one refined our understanding of human neurological responses to extinction-level events. Ortega raised her weapon. Step away from her. You misunderstand your position, Krevnoth said simply. These specimens aren't prisoners to be rescued. They're components in a vast calculation. Each thought, each fear response, each desperate hope feeds the algorithm. What algorithm? Ortega asked, dread pooling in her stomach. Before Krevnoth could answer, the chamber shuddered as something heavy impacted the floor behind Ortega. She spun to face the new threat, but too late. Mayazun of the True Reform stood over Krevnoth's suddenly lifeless body, a ceremonial blade dripping with fluorescent blood. Unlike standard Jularians, her exoskeleton bore intricate scarification patterns and her eyes, all 6 of them, focused on Ortega with unsettling intensity. The convergence algorithm, Mayazun answered, her translator rendering her clicks and whistles into flawless English. The calculation that will determine whether your species joins us or burns with us. She extended a 3-fingered hand not holding the blade. We have approximately 7 minutes before the Purity Division realizes their champion is dead. If you wish to understand what your people have truly stumbled into, Commander Ortega, I suggest we move quickly. The council chamber fell silent as Dr. Verlorax's testimony concluded. The Zularian scientist stood with perfect stillness, 6-fingered hands clasped before her in what human cultural specialists had identified as a gesture of extreme vulnerability among her kind. Unlike other Zularians, her exoskeleton bore deliberate modifications, sections surgically removed to expose neural clusters, and irreversible commitment to truth verification technology. Captain Eli Stern broke the silence, his voice tight with the effort of controlled rage. Let me ensure I understand correctly. Your genetic purity division not only created these weapons, but has gone rogue, with the capability to deploy them regardless of your government's surrender. Correct, Verlorax confirmed. The division operates independently, with redundant command structures and distributed authority. Your capture of our leadership was anticipated in their contingency planning. Dr. Okafor studied the complex molecular diagrams floating in the display between them. These aren't simple pathogens. They're programmable extinction vectors with evolutionary algorithms built in. Yes, Verlorax acknowledged. The weapons were designed to adapt to countermeasures. Each contains 64 generations of potential evolutionary pathways, all pre-simulated using data harvested from test subjects. Colonel Chen's scared face twitched. Test subjects? You mean the humans we found in your facilities? Among others, Verlorax admitted. I was senior geneticist on the human-specific vector until I... She paused, her translator struggling with the concept. Until I recognized the cosmic error of our approach. Ambassador Reyes leaned forward. Why come forward now? Why help us? Because the Purity Division has perverted our original directive, Verlorax explained. The bioweapons were created for species management, not extinction. But over centuries, the division evolved its own ideology, that the galaxy's evolutionary trajectory requires periodic purging of competitive intelligences. Director Patel's fingers danced across his interface, pulling up orbital scans. These dispersal devices you claim are on human worlds. How would they have been deployed? Our planetary security is extensive. Your commerce is more extensive, Lorax countered. The devices were embedded in legitimate trade goods over a 17-year infiltration program. They appear as standard atmospheric regulators, water purification nodes, even medical equipment. The implications rippled through the Council. Humanity had been trading with various non-Jularian species for decades. The potential vectors of infiltration were virtually limitless. We need planetary quarantine protocols immediately, Chen demanded. Shut down all interstellar travel until. That would trigger immediate activation, Lorax interrupted. The devices monitor patterns of human behavior. Any large-scale disruption to commerce or travel reads as detection and initiates countdown. They've weaponized our own civilization against us, Okafor realized. Our interdependence becomes our vulnerability. Stern laughed bitterly. 17 years of planning. While we debated whether alien contact would be beneficial, they were already among us, planning our extinction. Not all of us, Lorax insisted. The Reformation movement within Jularian society has opposed the purity division for generations. We are few, but we have managed to infiltrate key research physicians. She reached into a concealed pocket in her exoskeleton, a move that caused every security drone in the chamber to target her instantly. Slowly, she withdrew a crystalline data structure. This contains the recognition signatures for every deployed device, their locations, and the deactivation protocols. Convenient, Chen said skeptically. And what do you want in exchange? Understanding, Lorax replied simply. That what comes after this crisis determines whether our species learns from its errors or merely transfers dominance from one form of evolutionary arrogance to another. Before anyone could respond, emergency alerts flashed across every screen in the chamber. Automated defense systems across 3 colony worlds had detected simultaneous atmospheric anomalies. The bioweapon deployment had begun. Dr. Okafor stared at the spreading red indicators on the galactic map, each representing millions of human lives now in imminent danger. How long do we have? From detection to full species saturation. Lorax's compound eyes darkened. 48 hours. But neurological breakdown begins within 12. The Jularian reached out one 6-fingered hand toward the crystal data structure hovering between them. The choice before you is simple, yet impossible. Trust the enemy who helped create your extinction, or watch your species die while maintaining your righteous suspicion. Dr. Sophia Chen stood in the Emergency Command Center beneath Geneva, surrounded by holographic displays of the unfolding crisis. 3 colony worlds now showed spreading patterns of infection. Nueva Terra, Proxima Centauri IV, and the mining outpost at Captain Star. Nearly 8 million human lives in the balance, with billions more at risk if the contagion reached Earth. Containment teams report the pathogen is adapting to our countermeasures, reported Director Patel, his face haggard after 36 hours without sleep. Standard protocols are failing. It's evolving exactly as Dr. Lorax predicted. Chen studied the real-time genetic drift analyses. The bioweapon wasn't just mutating randomly. It was responding intelligently to each human defensive measure, as if it had been programmed with predictive models of human medical science. Because it had been. Where are our joint teams? Chen demanded. Team Alpha has neutralized devices on Mars and Luna, Colonel Chen reported, professional discipline overriding his personal distrust of their Jularian allies. Team Delta reports success at Europa Station. Teams Beta and Gamma are encountering resistance at the Titan and Ganymede facilities. Resistance? Chen asked sharply. Automated defense systems, the colonel clarified. And something else. The facilities appear to be evolving their structures, self-modifying in response to intrusion. Dr. Lorax, working at a cordoned-off station under heavy guard, looked up from her analysis. The architectural response systems, they're awakening. Explain, Chen ordered. Jularian high technology incorporates biological principles, Lorax said, manipulating a complex molecular model on her display. The containment facilities aren't merely housing the bioweapons, they're extensions of them. Living architecture designed to protect the deployment mechanisms. Like an immune system, Dr. Okafor realized, the xenobiologist in her momentarily overriding her horror. Precisely, Verlorax confirmed. But I've identified a vulnerability in their operation. The systems adapt to threats but rely on predictive modeling, models built from studying human tactical approaches. So we need to be unpredictable, Chen concluded. More than that, Verlorax corrected. You need to be unhuman. The facilities are programmed to recognize and counter patterns consistent with human problem-solving. The implication hung in the air until Admiral Reeves broke the silence. You're suggesting we let the Jularians lead the assault teams. Not just any Jularians, Verlorax clarified. Those of us from the Reformation movement. Our neural patterns differ significantly from both humans and Orthodox Jularians due to our modified exoskeletons and rejection of hierarchical thought structures. Absolutely not, Colonel Chen erupted. We'd be giving them control of our tactical response. We're already past the point where conventional solutions apply, Dr. Chen said quietly. The pathogen has reached stage 3 mutation on Nueva Terra. The first neurological breakdowns are occurring. She pulled up the medical feeds, colonists collapsing mid-sentence, their neural patterns disintegrating as the weapon targeted specific regions of the human brain. Unlike conventional pathogens, this one attacked with surgical precision, preserving consciousness while systematically destroying higher cognitive functions. The victims remained aware as their minds unraveled. Dr. Chen made her decision. Implement Protocol Inversus. All remaining assault teams will be reconfigured with Reformation Jularians taking tactical lead, backed by human support units. Admiral Reeves will maintain strategic oversight. She turned to Dr. Verlorax. Your people engineered this nightmare. Now prove your reformation is genuine by helping us end it. There's something else you should know, Verlorax said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. The bioweapon's final stage isn't just extinction. It's data harvesting. The neurological breakdown is designed to extract and transmit human consciousness, compressed, fragmented, but intact enough for the convergence algorithm. What exactly is this algorithm? Chen demanded. The Purity Division believes that consciousness itself is a resource to be harvested, Verlorax explained. They don't just want humans dead. They want to incorporate your species' cognitive patterns into their evolutionary calculations. Dr. Okafor's expression hardened as the pieces connected. The specimens in the underground facility. They weren't just test subjects. They were processing nodes. Yes, Verlorax confirmed. And the deployment facilities are designed to transform infected populations into extensions of that network. Trillions of human thoughts, fears, and dying moments, all becoming computational resources for the next phase of Jularian evolution. On the central display, the location of the Purity Division's hidden sanctuary pulsed beneath the southern Jularian Ocean. The assault team, an unprecedented alliance of human special forces and Reformation Jularians, was approaching insertion depth. Chen activated the command channel. All teams, this is control. We are no longer just fighting for survival. We are fighting for the sanctity of human consciousness itself. Proceed with ultimate prejudice. Admiral Helena Reeves paused before the incubation chamber, her weathered face reflected in the polished surface. Inside, the Kaldorian embryo floated in carefully calibrated amniotic fluid, its translucent skin revealing a complex circulatory system, unlike anything in Earth's evolutionary history. 4 tiny hearts pulsed in synchronization, pumping iridescent blood through delicate vessels. Remarkable, she whispered, almost despite herself. A species that should have been lost forever. Villanor stood beside her, the young Jularian scientist's modified exoskeleton, adorned with the blue markings of the Restoration Initiative. The first of many, we hope. We've successfully recovered viable genetic material from 17 of the 23 species eliminated during the hegemony's expansion. And the others? Reeves asked. Lost forever, Vela Nor acknowledged, her translator rendering the complex harmonics of grief in her native language. Some wounds cannot be healed. Some debts cannot be repaid. They moved through the laboratory where human and Jularian geneticists worked side by side, their previous enmity transformed into shared purpose. 2 decades of collaboration had produced technologies neither species could have developed alone. The human capacity for lateral thinking, combined with Jularian precision, had accelerated genetic science beyond all prediction. Your father would find this unimaginable, Reeves observed. Working together rather than dominating. My father died believing domination was the natural order, Villanor replied. He couldn't conceive of prosperity without subjugation, evolution without extinction. They reached the observation deck overlooking the memorial gardens, where representatives from 30 space-going civilizations gathered beneath flowering trees transplanted from worlds across the galaxy. The summit would formalize the Galactic Covenant against extinction, the first legal framework explicitly recognizing the rights of all sentient species to evolutionary autonomy. 20 years ago, if someone had told me I'd stand on Jularian soil watching this, Reeves gestured to the gathering below. You would have judged them knave, Villanor finished for her. Just as my people would have judged this outcome impossible. We were all prisoners of our historical patterns. A respectful chime announced an incoming communication. Reeves accepted it with a gesture, and Admiral Zhang's holographic form materialized between them. Admiral Reeves, our long-range sensors have detected an unidentified vessel approaching from the galactic rim, Zhang reported. Design parameters match nothing in our combined databases. First contact protocols are being prepared. Reeves felt a familiar tightening in her chest, the weight of responsibility that had never truly left her. Trajectory. Directly toward Jular Prime, ma'am. They're making no attempt to conceal their approach. Preliminary analysis suggests they've been observing the summit preparations. After Zhang's hologram faded, Villanor turned to Reeves, her compound eyes reflecting the starlight from the observation windows. They've been watching us, learning how we handle power. And judgment, Reeves added. How we balance consequence with opportunity. The symbolic weight of the moment wasn't lost on either of them. A new species, witnessing the aftermath of humanity's most consequential decision, to deny mercy in its weakest form while extending it in its most demanding manifestation. Not forgiveness without accountability, but redemption through collaborative restoration. Below them, the summit participants began moving toward the ceremonial hall where the covenant would be signed. The Jularian Prime Minister, elected rather than appointed for the first time in their species' history, took her position alongside the human diplomatic contingent. The memorial Eternal Flame, commemorating victims of the hegemony's aggression, cast long shadows across the assembled dignitaries. What will you tell them? Villanor asked, her gaze fixed on the approaching starship visible only as a distant point of light in the evening sky. These new arrivals who know nothing of our shared history. Admiral Reeves considered the question, her mind returning to the incubation chamber where an extinct species prepared to rejoin a universe that had continued without them. The truth. That evolution isn't a zero-sum game. That mercy without justice is empty, but justice without opportunity for redemption is merely vengeance wearing civilization's mask. She straightened her formal uniform, the weight of 2 decades settling into resolve rather than burden. And that humanity's greatest strength wasn't winning the war, but reimagining the peace that followed. As twilight deepened over the transformed Jularian capital, the point of light grew brighter. The unknown vessel carrying observers from beyond known space, approaching a civilization fundamentally altered by its encounter with humanity's complex judgment. The true test was just beginning.